As always, it's a pleasure to spend some time with you folks. And I think it's important for you to understand a little bit about where I'm coming from. Now, you've probably already gathered with my background that I'm going to be talking about water today. And I've already given a couple of lectures regarding and presentations water. The presentation I first gave on water was in regards to what is water and its abundance on our planet. Another presentation I've already given is the contamination of water. It's astounding the amount of contamination and contaminants that get into our water and consequently creates quite a problem in order for us to have safe, healthy water. So first of all, I'd like to identify who I am specifically. Some of you may have not heard any of my presentations in the past, but I'm Richard Walker. And I want to take a moment to once again thank you and allow me to have some time with you and given one of my many presentations. But first of all, what is my professional background? Well, after 30 years, I retired from the medical field. My medical career began at Indiana University while I majored in allied health. And following my academic accomplishments, I joined the United States Army Medical Corps during the Vietnam War. And I was stationed in Incheon, Korea, which was identified as a combat zone during the Vietnam War. Incheon, a little history here, Incheon, Korea was where MacArthur divided the forces of North Korea during the Korean War, and it's only 40 miles north of Incheon where the DMZ, Demilitarized Zone, is located to this very day in Korea. After completing my military tour, I returned to the civilian world and assisted running pathology laboratories, both private and hospital clinical laboratories. In furthering my professional career, I held both state and regional management positions for non-medical, national and international companies as well. I've also done international work traveling in Europe as well as I've traveled in Asia. As a matter of fact, I've had the honor of traveling in 12 different countries. But I completed my professional career with the international company of GlaxoSmithKline Clinical Pathology Lab, and there I took my retirement. My lectures are sponsored by Home Choice Network, where we believe in independence for seniors and peace of mind for families. Home Choice Network is a home care agency, which is licensed by the state of North Carolina and regulated by the Department of Health and Human Services out of Raleigh. We have been in existence for over 16 years. By the way, I have held the position of president of Toastmasters International Club here in Sandhills in Pinehurst in the Southern Pines area. This is a worldwide organization dedicated to public speaking and leadership development. At this time, I would like for you to sit back, relax, and hopefully enjoy this particular presentation regarding water. And this presentation is one of 5 presentations in a series regarding water. There is so much to cover in the subject of water. And we always have to keep in mind water is the essence of life. So today I'm going to talk about the solutions for healthy water. There are answers, even though we have a lot of contaminants in our water. We must keep in mind that medicines we ingest are chemicals that affect our bodies, often in good ways, but in negative ways as well, and negatively affects our groundwater after discharging from our bodies. We flush our toilets, and then out of sight and out of mind, but we should always remember, it should never be out of mind, that the chemicals that we have deposited in our water supply can be harmful. So it is important to understand the various solutions to have healthy water. As W.H. Auden, an English poet of the 20th century, once said, thousands have lived without love, not one without water. First, you must know the status regarding the safety of your water and its consumption. In other words, we must educate ourselves and we must be aware of the facts regarding the water we are drinking. Let us start with a chemical analysis. For example, some contaminants in the water happens to be iron, or it must be an off balance of pH, which is a potential hydrogen balance of acidic water or alkaline water. Then we have other chemical contaminants like sulfur or nitrates. Nitrates at a high level can affect the aspect of a lady bearing a child or small children, which can create a problem in what's called blue babies, where nitrates can affect the amount of oxygen being consumed by your red blood cells. So these are contaminants to be concerned with. Other contaminants are like cobalt, which can create thyroid issues. Arsenic, which can have side effects of various carcinogenic effects regarding cancer. Chromium creates birth defects. And for example, here in North Carolina, there are certain areas where farmers have a high concentration of raising chickens, and consequently, the manure from chickens has a high concentration of arsenic. This washes down into the soil. And I have one individual who bought property where a chicken farm used to be, and he noticed that he had a lot of arsenic in his water, in his well water. So he had to spend well over $10,000 to get a specific unit to remove arsenic from his well water so it would be safe for his family. TDS, which is totally dissolved solids in your water. This regards the status of whether your water is hard or soft. Hard water can be detrimental, just like even washing your clothes. Hard water can cause more wear and tear on your clothes than you realize. And hard water can stop up various plumbing features like shower heads or whatever. So a lot of people like to have soft water. So understanding the total dissolved solids in your water and what solutions to rectify those problems is important. If you're using municipal water, you are by law to receive an annual report, a water report, and you must learn to realize the seriousness of this report. By law, they have to submit it, and by rights, you need to study it and ask questions if there's concern as to the status of the water you are drinking. Then you have a microbiological analysis. This is checking for pathogens in your water via both state, county, or national testing services. You can accomplish the status biologically of whether or not your water is safe. Testing should be performed on an annual basis if you have a private well. Another thing a lot of people don't realize is that well water can change. Private well water can change from time to time. It depends on what's going on underground, which you have no idea of knowing. Now, there are some individuals that said, I have been drinking this water for 20 years and I don't have to worry about anything. Well, what happens a lot of times, people will build up various antibodies to the microbial concerns that might be in the water. But if somebody else comes along or family visits and they go home and they become sick, well, there's a good chance they did not have the antibodies regarding the water you had from your private well, and consequently, the microbiological contamination caused them to become ill. So you need to at least once a year check the status of your private well water. Your local municipality, as I said, should report also any biological concerns in testing the water that they are submitting for you. And at the same time, that's one of the main reasons they have chlorine in the water, is to make sure your water is not contaminated with bacteria. So check for non-pathogenic organisms as well, particularly if you're on well water, like coliform. This is a bacilli type organism, and if it's in your well, there's a good chance that you have an opportunity of microbiological contamination, and therefore should keep an eye on your well. After proper and professional analysis that you've taken for positive steps in analyzing correct solution regarding your health water, I guess the next thing is for us to talk about the solutions. So let's say chemical concerns require specific equipment and media to correct the status of your water, depending what the contaminant may be. For example, iron in your water is called ferrous iron and cannot be seen when immediately observed in a glass of water. I can take a glass of water, and if I got iron in the water, hold it up, it looks clear. But if I leave that glass set overnight, or at least for 24 hours, I will start seeing various specks of material in the water. And I may wonder, what's going on? Well, what's going on is oxidation. And as the water becomes oxidized, being exposed to the air, the ferrous iron in the water turn to what's called ferric. And consequently, the ferric will stain your clothes, sinks, toilets, and showers. So one of the first things I would do when I would ask somebody about their water, I would ask, well, do you have stains in your water? And what I'm referring to is, are your toilets stained? What about your showers? Are your sinks stained? And what's happening is, as the water becomes oxidized, it goes from ferrous to ferric, as I mentioned, and ferric is essentially rust. Now, acidic water requires a bicarbonate base to raise the pH of the water to a balance of pH of 7, the potential hydrogen, a balance of acid and alkaline water. Now, another example, again, I ask about stains regarding that of acid water, and these might be blue-green stains. And you might wonder, well, what's going on with my sinks getting a blue-green stain? Well, obviously you have copper plumbing, and acid water dissolves copper. So yes, you will get leaks in certain times in your plumbing as the copper is dissolved and staining a blue-green stain. Now, the solution for iron is various types of media to oxidize the water and get the ferric status and ferrous water contamination out of your water, and therefore not having the stains regarding iron, or acid water, same thing, and not having stains from acid water in your copper plumbing. And a lot of sinks and faucets will have copper built into, particularly when it's made overseas. So you may not have copper plumbing in your home, but your shower heads and faucets may have some copper, and consequently, again, still have staining. Then you have microbial contamination, and you need to shock your well with chlorine. That's chlorination of your well, the same as what municipalities do in getting rid of bacteria. And you may find it best, if you don't want to use chlorine, which can also be a contaminant, you may want to use what's called an ultraviolet light system, a non-chemical system to remove pathogenic and microbes in your water. After chemical and biological steps that you may take to get healthy water, it's always best to install the proper filtration system. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit more and a little bit more specifically. Always install, by the way, a large 20-inch filter in your home at the source of the water entering your home. This is an important step for both well water and municipal water. This filter system also removes unwanted sediment and contaminants. What you have in the municipal water, like ammonia, chlorine, fluoride, this becomes, particularly the ammonia and chlorine, it's known as chloramine, and it can be like a reddish yellow or green yellowish substance that your filter will stop. And when you see all of this on the filter, you realize immediately you most certainly don't want to be drinking that. And the work of the chloride and fluoride has already been established in the water. So you're not removing anything that will be detrimental in the treatment, but you will be removing excess contaminants that you would consume in your body. Now, one of the critical steps that you need to take in regards to having fresh, healthy water is to install, and I have this in my home, is an RO system. An RO system stands for reverse osmosis and should have at least 4 different filters in place, like a half a micron filter initially at the beginning, and then you have the membrane, then you have a carbon filter, and then you have a carbon filter known as a polishing filter. And the carbon enhances the freshness of the water. The membrane, down at molecular level, removes contaminants, which allows you to have, again, safe, healthy water. This is a non-chemical process system, which is the closest to healthy water is what Mother Nature has allowed. Now, I want to make a note that any and all water treatment equipment requires maintenance and regular testing service. It is like a car. You change the tires from time to time. You check your car oil from time to time. You have to fill up with gas from time to time, right? Well, you have to do the same thing in regards to various media that you've had to use in balancing, like a carbonate-based media to bring the acidity of the water up to a pH of 7 to balance the alkalinity and the acidity of the water. That media has to be replenished from time to time. The same thing with iron media, which assists in oxidizing the ferrous iron from ferrous to ferric and removing that from the water. So as I've mentioned in other lectures that I've given, that water is the essence of life. I guess I'd like to move towards a close regarding the discussion of water and, for example, name one plant or animal that can live without water. Water is most certainly abundant in the chemicals throughout the cosmos. So we do have the abundance of water, and for life, we have to require having healthy water. Do you know what is in your drinking water? These are some questions you need to ask. EPA, for example, which is Environmental Protection Agency. That's a government agency, but governments don't always regulate the way they should. And consequently, what type of regulations does the EPA have in your state regarding your water? And of course, when you get into government regulations, you get into politicians. What are your politicians doing to assist you in having safe, healthy water? Are they ignoring the protections in your state that need to be in place to regard safe, healthy water? For example, Cape Fear Basin, a byproduct was Gen-X. And Gen-X was not on a government list that required removal from the water discharge. And therefore, the company was, a byproduct of Teflon, was discharging Gen-X in the water. Gen-X is a carcinogenic element. Golf courses, 18 to 20 different chemicals. What type of regulation do we have? as we have sprinkler systems in place on golf courses or it rains, where do you think those chemicals go? If your water, is it clear? Therefore, do you think it's safe? We've already talked about it. It may not be safe. You can't see the microbes in the water or chemical contaminants often you cannot observe. What about your refrigerator filters? Does that make your water safe? Well, a lot of people don't realize a refrigerator filter is a filter based on carbon. It removes some of the fluoride, or ammonia, or chlorine in the water. But that's basically all it's doing, and consequently may not be as safe as you think it is. Understand the filters that are involved with your water that's coming into your home. And does pure water exist? And the answer is no. There's no such thing as pure water. All water has some type of contaminants. And another question I can ask, can it rain without dust in the air? And the answer is no. You must have dust in the air for the water to form on a dust particle in order to form a raindrop. Very interesting. But we have dust all around us, dust we can't even see. How can you find out if your drinking water is safe? That's important. You talk about contamination, but what can I do to see if my water's safe? Well, first of all, you need to locate and work with a professional certified testing laboratory. Your local municipality is one. You have private laboratories. You have national and international laboratories that are able to test for you. And I've already mentioned one of the ways to have safe, healthy water is to install an RO, reverse osmosis system. Now, service house filters are very reputable, and a professional plumber is going to know what would be best for you to use for your particular water. In other words, if you have a lot of sediment in your water, even from municipals water, you can have a lot of sediment. The average delivery system throughout the United States with municipalities, the delivery system averages around 80 years old. So you have a lot of breaks in the water when they're doing new construction or just an old system. And so you can have a lot of sand. I had a lady one time, I looked in the back of her toilet basin area, and they had about 2 inches of sand. She said, "Oh my goodness, I didn't know that sand was even in there." And she said, "But it's nice, white, and clean." And I said, "Yes. Do you know what that sand was before it got into your water system?" She said, "No." And I said, "Well, it's dirt." And I said, "That's what you've been drinking. And therefore you need to have a house filter to remove sediment and reduce contamination." So, do you know about the source of your water? Where's your water coming from? Both the source regarding your municipalities as well as your private wells. Underground aquifers, I've mentioned, streams, rivers, lakes, or oceans, all have some type of contaminants, such as plastic, agricultural pesticides, fertilizers, household cleaning products, road draining systems. So consequently, it's important to know, where is your water coming from? Where does bottled water come from? That's another question I've brought before in my presentations regarding water. And how is it processed and stored? Do you really know and understand? Does bottled water have hydrocarbons in it? Which the answer is yes, since water is a universal solvent. So why are so many people sold on bottled water? Well, number one, it's convenience. And number two, a lot of people have lost faith in our water municipal systems when they hear stories like Buffalo, New York contaminants, or up in Washington State or Michigan State. So they think bottled water is safe. But again, you have to make sure you understand what you're drinking. And chemicals can have immediate effects such as death or long-term illness. Toxic chemicals. Some of the specific chemicals are cobalt, which I mentioned before, thyroid issues, arsenic, and chromium birth defects. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is wake up. Elect officials that have your health and safety in mind. It's fine for officials to promote profit and profit for corporations and money. We live in a capitalistic society, but we also live in a society, a free society that requires responsibility. So make sure our elected officials are thinking about our health and the safety of the water we consume. So what does that mean? That means we may have to have stronger EPA regulations. Reach out for immediate help. Test your water. Learn more about your water in your home. Stop assuming that all is okay. Talk to your neighbors. Ask them about their water. How does it taste? What about the color, staining, smell? Sometimes I've gone into homes where there would be a particular odor from the water, and I immediately knew there was a sulfur problem, a chlorine problem, what have you. So read your water reports and from the municipalities, if you're on municipal water, every year. Read and see the status about your water. Your health and life is in your hands. So my attitude is take charge. Now, locally in the past years, I have had the opportunity to be a water specialist here in Moore County, testing, treating, troubleshooting the challenge of Moore County water, both municipal and private well water. I have worked with certified local, county, national, and international water testing laboratories. And as I mentioned earlier, retired after 30 years in the medical field. Consequently, I feel I am qualified to speak on the exciting subject called water, which is, as I've mentioned on more than one occasion, the essence of life. I wish to take a moment to thank you for allowing myself and Home Choice Network to spend time with you today. I realize I've covered a lot of material regarding the fascinating subject of water. However, we can revisit this topic at your convenience anytime. Please keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, that I do have more presentations regarding water. How does our immune system relate to water? Does water affect our immune system? Is just another example of the aspect of water. Another one is homeostasis. What is that? Well, that's the balance of the chemicals in water in our body. How is that related to water and the balance of our chemical reactions in our body is another very interesting subject regarding water. So as always, it's a pleasure to have time with you, and we at Home Choice Network are deeply concerned that you folks are taking the medicine you're supposed to take, following the instructions that the doctors give you, and make sure that you do have nice, healthy, safe water. So again, have a great day.